Abracadabra, Orlando Magic, Orlando
It's so
Magic.
good, dude.
It's so catchy.
It's apparently I was looking through Kevin Clark's tweets. Apparently, there's like another video which I haven't watched yet, but it's like behind the scenes, like the making of that video or of that song.
Okay.
And apparently, it's really good. I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna watch it after this.
It's so fucking funny.
I'm also gonna try and watch the KG doc today because that looks fucking. Oh,
What's it
dude,
on?
it's on Showtime, so I'm probably just gonna do like a free trial and then cancel it.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find that. Actually, while we're waiting for Ceruti, go to YouTube real quick.
Okay.
And then just type in KG Pat Riley. And just play it for yourself. I just need to listen to it because it's great. Wait, is it playing right now?
I'm playing it right now.
Oh, okay. I can't hear it. It's, I guess only if you share
Yeah,
your
it's
screen.
only
I
if I'm
can hear
sharing
it.
my screen.
Okay. That's actually good to know. Motherfucker. It's insane.
Unreal. That's so good.
This motherfucker.
Motherfucker.
All right. I got something for you. It's like all right, 17-year-old KG, you fucking
Right.
nutbag.
I wish I had that drive.
Right? I'm pretty excited to do the interview with Michael Pena about that. Did you read that GQ article?
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
good. Really good. I've never heard of Michael Pena before, but
He sounds vaguely familiar. I think I haven't asked. Adam and I were talking about it. And he said he's obviously known him for a little bit. I don't know if he used to work at Celtics blog or like I knew his name and I like in my mind vaguely associated with the Celtics, but didn't really know why. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's dope. I was hoping I could be a part of it.
Yeah.
But alas, the schedules didn't align.
Yeah. No, we gotta kind of get something to do with like cussing cousins for next weekend to make it different. Because like the honestly, like I don't mind doing the extra podcast. It's just really hard. Like by like the second, like Tuesday's fine, Wednesday with you is fine, and then it's like Thursday. I'm like, bro, I don't have like an original thought in my head right now. I'm just either
Yeah.
regurgitating something we did on Tuesday, or I'm saying something you said probably on like Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I'm just a mashup of other things that we've done by this time.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
I'm excited to have that just to be different because that's one of the things I tried to like. I was telling Adam, I was like, yeah, man, we got to start throwing in some narrative, like a little bit more narrative stuff that can be like fluid, and then like if there is something like the KG piece, and throwing that in just to keep it different, you know?
Yeah. No, I think the KG one's gonna be good.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Sahara Lounge?
I've been there a bunch of times. I like Sahara Lounge.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great spot.
Yeah, you guys are in love with it. I think it's funny.
Dude, it's so close. It's like my dream is to just like have a little bar at the end of my street.
I know. That's like for me, that's like exactly what I'd want, like a coffee shop and a bar that I like, and then like one food restaurant that can be like I can feel like is my spot. That's like my dream is to like have all of that within walking distance and like, you know, within like a half mile or less from like my house.
Yeah. No, it's pretty great. And then I got Palomino is I mean, I have to drive to Palomino, but it's
What's Palomino? I don't even know
drive.
what that is.
It's right on the corner of what is it? Springdale and 12th Street, like across from Givens.
Okay.
You know where the Country Boys like fried chicken is?
I mean, that's the place she mentioned last night. I didn't know of it.
Yeah, it's like right next to that.
Okay.
It's that little strip mall, like right on the corner of 12th Street.
Here's our guy. Should I add him in?
Yeah.
What's up, dudes?
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Good to hear the song in the morning.
Yeah. Dude, this video is fucking amazing.
It's I didn't know it existed. Like, Kev is from Orlando. I'm not from Orlando, so
we're gonna talk about that.
Okay, good. Yeah. So he I don't know how he stumbled upon this. I guess he was somebody's wedding or something, right? He was saying, and this is like everything the '80s was and like encapsulated. It's just a weird video, but it's amazing. 20 whatever years later.
It's so catchy. Like I've been walking around my kitchen getting like my coffee, just like singing it all morning.
Yeah, it literally fits the time perfectly. I mean, it's just like that weird '80s kind of like awkward, whatever the musical accompaniment is. It's just I don't know. And then the guy's vest is incredible. Yeah. I love that Stuff is also kind of like the same. I didn't realize Stuff hasn't changed in a while, so shouts out to him. But yeah, it's good stuff, dude.
Yeah, Will sent this to me this morning, and I was fucking howling in my bed. I hadn't seen it yesterday. Razzle Mataz.
It's funny that these, like this stuff used to always happen in NBA arenas, like all the in arena entertainment stuff, and their whole thing was like attracting people through like entertainment, not just the sport. And it still kind of is that way in a way, but just differently. But man, I always say the '80s are like the weirdest decade, dude. Just a lot of shit, a lot of weird movies, a lot of weird music. It was just a weird decade, but
yeah, we were joking like maybe teams should go back to having like actual team songs. Like I feel like that would be something I would welcome to come back, is everyone having like their own team song like this.
Yep. Well, what the thing the Magic need to do is bring back the jerseys. I don't know. That's the one thing that they've somehow moved on from when they didn't need to move on from that. Those were the best. Yeah. I think they're probably top 5 jersey in the NBA. The old pinstripe ones, the black, the red, the black, the blue, and the white.
The Shaq and Penny version.
And for some reason, they just, other than a couple here and there, like throwback nights or something, they don't embrace that. I think their uniforms suck, actually. So it's annoying.
Well, we're gonna give you plenty of time to talk about the Magic, how you became a fan, all of that. But no, man, we appreciate you hopping on here. What's that?
Do I sound all right?
You sound great.
Sometimes this mic it's like hollow in here sometimes. So I usually record on my own recorder, but if this works, that's cool.
Yeah, actually curious about, so this is just like a separate like professional type question. So you guys, I've heard you guys talk about this, not just you, but just in general. So it sounds like you guys record to something else and then send it to someone like yourself and you kind of put it together.
Yeah. So I have this is what the Yeti mic, right? Which is like, whatever.
That's what we have to. We have the snowball ones, but
yeah, they're, it's fine. It does a little better than your computer. So basically I have this thing, which is like a task cam.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm stuck to a wire over here. And this is just like a personal recorder essentially. And then I have a separate mic hook up to it, and it's completely independent of like internet or whatever. It's just local record, and then I pop a file and upload it to my computer, and then shoot it over to Kyle, and it just gives better audio quality for the most part. And most of it, we use it for obviously the pod itself, but then also like breakout videos. Like our social team will like overlap the audio with the Zoom video, because we do it in Zoom.
Yeah,
but the audio is just not good, obviously, or it's not good enough. But yeah, but these are fine. I usually use this for when I do small talk with Michelle too. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So it works
cool,
out
man. Well, appreciate that tip. Yeah, we actually just got our own producer. He's not here on the call. We're meeting with him afterwards. He literally just started this week, so we're trying to find ways to level our game up as well.
Are you guys both in Boston area, or where you at?
Funny story, man. So we live in Austin, Texas. We're both from Dorchester though. So we grew up in Dorchester, went to Boston Public Schools, and then Will got a job down here in like 2013 or 2012.
Pretty much a decade ago, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was just like fucking bartending and substitute teaching at my school, at my old high school. So I just went along for the ride, and I've been here ever since.
I mean, I've never been to Austin, but everyone says it's like one of the best places to be.
I mean, we've been here 10 years, so I mean that like the proof is in the pudding. You know what I mean?
What does it keep Austin weird, right? Keep or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I hear, just this from the outside perspective, like it seems like more and more people are like, it's like Nashville. More and more people are now discovering it, and everyone wants to move there and hang out there. But I'm sure it's still pretty awesome.
And it's probably the same as Nashville, where it's like, so keep Austin weird is like it still is the city slogan, kind of, but like it's not. it doesn't actually embody the city anymore. Like, because it's gotten so popular, like from when we got here a decade ago and to like where it is now, it's like all the places that were like cool and niche, and it's like, oh shit, like there was like the best example. There's a street out here. It's called Rainy Street, and literally it started probably like 3 or 4 years before Greg or I moved out here. And someone it was an old rundown street, like nothing happening on it. I think this one woman, she bought up like 3 or 4 of these rundown houses and just flipped them and turned them into bars. And so then it became like a cool place to go, and it was literally just renovate, like nothing really super special about it, just like houses that are now bars. And it was like really cool. And now it's the most fucking corporate place in the entire world. There's hotels, there's like high rises. It's like it's the complete opposite of what made it so cool. When people come down, we're like, yo, we got to show you the street. Now it's like we have to avoid this street because we're not going there.
That sucks. As soon as anything like that, as soon as it becomes like mainstream, people are like, how can I make a buck off it? What do we got to do? Let's bring in all this stuff. And it is what it is. But it's funny because I've worked with a few people who went to UT and are just like, I obviously worked with Will Kane in the past, and I think he went to Texas Law, but he moved back to Texas.
He's a Texas
Austin
boy through and through though.
He's in Sherman. You think he's outside Dallas now, but yeah, he swears by Austin, and everybody that's ever been there swears by it too. So that's cool, man.
Yeah, we had Sharks on a couple weeks ago, so he's a UT guy.
Oh yeah,
well.
Yep. Yeah, he's a good dude. He's a really good dude.
Cool, man. Well, I know it's a Saturday, so I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, you're
good. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no
I always feel bad asking for time on like a weekend, because I'm like, man, I'm sure you got shit to do, but we both work regular jobs as well, so we got to like find time.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm good. We got no soccer. It's an international break. We had a big U.S. win last night, so we're excited.
All right, man. Cool. So it's pretty much like I sent you over kind of what topics that we want to hit. So just to give you a general rundown, we'll probably talk just a little bit about you working at ESPN, Ringer, your interactions with Russillo, all that type stuff.
Okay.
I want to talk about you working with Scal on Scal and Pals. Any issues there talking about that at all?
No, it's totally fine. Totally fine. Okay. Yeah. We're not like, we don't really keep in touch. We can get into it. I'm not gonna. He's a good dude. He's totally a good dude. Yeah. So
totally he's somewhat polarizing. So we're really curious. We actually had on the host of like the Celtics main pregame, halftime, postgame is someone that we've had on regularly since she joined NBC Boston, and she started working with him. So we started to like kick around the tires. Amina Smith.
Okay, no, I don't know if I know. I don't know if it was Abby, right?
She was the one who was previously doing. Now she's doing the sideline reporting.
Okay,
and Amina came in and does the like studio stuff.
So we started talking to her, dude. Amina's a superstar. If you don't know her, look her up. She's gonna be.
I probably would know her face more than that, because you flip around League Pass and you see. Although what's weird here, because I'm in Connecticut. Is I get like weird blackouts sometimes for example, like it's tough for me to get Celtic games because I have YouTube TV, but I have League Pass, but they think they don't let me get both games. So I'll get blacked out on YouTube, but it also gets blacked out on League Pass. So it's weird. I have this like blind spot sometimes for Celtics games. Same thing with the Nets. Now I get Knicks games, which is weird. It doesn't make any sense. So I have to find.
You're in a weird spot for those blackouts.
It's
because stupid. We get that with Texas. Like every once in a while, if there's not a Celtics game and I have free time, I'll be like, oh, let me check in on the Rockets, and I'll be like, oh shit, I can't watch that game because I don't have cable, but I have League Pass, and then I borrow a friend's cable password so I can watch NBC Sports Boston in case there's a blackout with the Celtics. So
I'm on Reddit trying to find a stream sometimes. Usually, if it's like a good enough game or if it's a Magic game, but.
Dope, man. Well, that's the other thing we're going to talk about, you being a Magic fan.
Yep.
So I want to talk about that. We'll just talk about the Magic in general. And then the last thing that we want to do is I took a stab at kind of like life advice that you guys do, but we're going to call it basketball advice. So I got a couple emails here that we'll go through. I think you'll enjoy it. You'll pick up on what we're doing. I think.
Good, cool. Yeah. Wherever you guys want to go, you're good.
We'll make it work. Cool. All right. Anything else you got, Greg?
No. So this will be coming out of a break. So we're going to talk about the Celtics Cavs after the game tonight, and then this will be the second part of the pod.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Let's get into it. Joining us today here on Green with Envy from The Ringer, it's super producer of the Ryan Russillo podcast and Life Advice fame, Abracadabra, Razzmatazz. It's Magic superfan Steve Ceruti. What up, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. I know the song is sweeping the nation. It's good to see.
I absolutely love that song. I've been singing it all morning while I'm getting my coffee.
It's so catchy.
It's gonna take off. I'm gonna find a way. We're gonna talk to our producer Nico here, and shout out to our new producer Nico here on the pod. Let's see if we can work that in here, whether it's at the beginning of the pod. Maybe we'll end the pod with that song here because it is so damn catchy. But number one, I gotta ask you, man. So I know. I feel like I want to just call you Ceruti, which I think feels fine. But you know what I mean? Like when you meet somebody, when you introduce someone, and it's like, oh hey, this is my friend Alex, but you never call them Alex. You call them like in Greg and I's case, we actually have a friend named Wilkie, but when you get to say Alex, and you're like, oh, that feels fucking strange, man. So So for you, and I know this was a topic on the Rosillo show a couple of weeks ago, where you're talking about some people think your name is like a knight, like Sir,
correct,
and then like Rudy from like the Notre Dame movie. You know what I mean? Like, which doesn't make any fucking sense. And then you were Quinnipiac Steve at one point. So what's your actual preference, and like how do you introduce yourself in like a normal setting?
It's so funny that you asked that. I prefer Ceruti because I don't for some reason I've never really liked my name Steve. I don't know why. I don't feel like I am a Steve. So most people growing up, whether it was like when I was playing sports or friends or whoever, people that I work with, it's always Ceruti. On the air, it's always Ceruti. Although I think Ryan always says at the end of every show, because they have to like, oh, thank the producers. He calls me Steve, which is always weird because he never calls me Steve. But he calls me Steve in that setting. So it's kind of odd. But you know, I've recently try to figure this out, like how I sign emails, because, you know, people know me as Ceruti. I prefer to be called Ceruti, but like, if I don't know somebody and I sign it Ceruti, is that like weird? Is that not like, you know, the corporate, whatever? So I don't know. I'm like caught in this weird spot a lot of the times. I would say if we're just hanging, and especially in this setting, Ceruti is definitely preferred. I feel like my sisters, my mom, and probably my wife are the only people that call me Steve. So, or like people that I first meet. And then the night thing, I mean, it's crazy, guys, how long that's gone on. I mean, that's been like 7-8 years in the making of, as you mentioned, there's Quinnipiac Steve, because I went to Quinnipiac and I was working on SVP and Rosillo back in the day. And obviously Stanford Steve worked on the show, and there's millions of Steves everywhere. And they're like, what do you want to be called? I was like, Quinnipiac Steve, I guess. I don't know. And then Dan Pelt he just like couldn't pronounce it or hated it. It was just too long. It's a terrible name. I mean, it's awful. Yeah. That's kind of part of the joke. So I don't know. I guess it sort of morphed its way into them just calling me Ceruti. And then for 8+ years, I've been getting tweets, emails, whatever, from people being like, oh my God, I just found you online. Your name's not actually Sir S-I-R Rudy. And I'm like, why would it be that? Like, wouldn't there be a backstory to that other than him just calling me like a Sir, like a knight of the round table? I don't know. So I prefer just the last name Ceruti. It's all good.
Okay, I can relate to that because my last name is Menakis. And my first name's Greg. I've never felt like a Greg. Yep. Will and I have been best friends since we were 2 years old. And a lot of times when people meet me or meet Will, they like assume that I'm the Will, right?
You do. You know what? You look like a Will. I could see that. Yeah.
Right. And I don't really look like a Greg. So my whole life, like I'm the baby in my family. So everybody in my family is just Menakis. Like my sister's Menakis. My brother is called Menakis sometimes. His name's Charles though. So he's a very unique personality. So a lot of people just call him Charles. And
we call him Chuck, joking around, but he's not really a Chuck. It's just like it's kind of ironic to call him
Chuck's Chuck. It's a good nickname.
Yeah. So like me and my sister, we're both Menakises.
Yeah, you have to have the right last name though for people to call you by your last name. I remember I used to work with Will Kane, who is a Texas guy, and he you can't call him Kane. Kane is not a name that you call someone with their last name. He's a Will. He is Will, and he very much looks like a Will. Like Rosillo. Rosillo's a good like last name. You call Rosillo. Last name. Ryan. I mean Ryan too, but like Rosillo. Like for example, on Rosillo's show though, like cousin Kyle or nephew Kyle, I should say.
Nephew Kyle, yeah.
I'm thinking of cousin Greg at this point. I got Succession on the brain. Nephew Kyle, like I wouldn't call him Crichton, like his last name. It's just weird.
No, so that's weird. There's no flow to it.
Yes, you have to have the right last name for someone to call you by your last name.
So to throw an oddity and a wrinkle into this, it's weird because I feel like I get the full name treatment sometimes. So I've literally been with people, you know, when like someone calls someone you're with and they're like, oh, hey, what's up? What's going on? Like, who are you with? It's like, oh, I'm with Menakis, Ceruti, Will Weir, Brian. It's like, why the fuck did I get the full name treatment? Like,
well, you know why?
But Weir's not a good last name either, just to say. So maybe I get it.
Weir would be if I just hey, what's up, Weir? It
doesn't feel.
Right. You're kind of in that Kane category, or the Kyle category, where it's like I don't know, but I think people probably call you first name, last name because you have like Will, Steve, Greg. They're kind of like we have generic names. Right? You gotta I'm with Will Weir, right? You have to it has to be specific about
it's a quick hitter too. You know what I mean? It's 8 letters in total. You know what I mean?
We also love alliteration as a society. So Will Weir it flows off the tongue pretty nice.
I'm extremely guilty of that. I think that's pretty much every time Greg and I put together a segment, it usually starts with, all right, how can we alliterate this segment to make it sound catchier?
Yep. Every single title on First Take or when we would do like the radio shows on TV. I used to always joke like everything would be alliteration because the easiest thing you could do is just like for some reason your brain goes right there. So we as people and consumers, that's what we love.
And I think there's one more aspect to the perfect last name. I think it's about the multisyllabic nature of the name, right? It can't be two. I feel like it's got to be at least 3 syllables. We got Russillo, right? That's 3. Mm-hmm. Ceruti, that's 3. Menakis, that's 3. So maybe there's the magic in the 3 syllables.
Probably. And then one is probably like Weir or Kane, like I mentioned. It just, it doesn't sort of flow off the tongue. So I think that makes sense. Although you can get too long though. Like if it's 4 or 5 syllables, then we get too complicated, and then you probably shorten it. It's like half of a last name or part of the last name. So yeah, man,
that's where nicknames come into play. Or you give them like maybe you start going to initials. It's like, oh, this is THT. Taylor Horton Tucker. We're not gonna call him Horton Tucker. Got THT. Taylor. So you just like shorten it down, maybe. I don't know.
You know what's funny about initials too is sometimes I feel like they work naturally, and other times I feel like people try to force the nickname or the initial nickname. Like for example, like Jay will call Stephen A on First Take essay, and I'm like, what?
That does not sound good at all.
I'm like, you're doing too much, my man. Like he's Stephen A. He's Stephen A. That's like he's an icon. He's Stephen A. He doesn't need a nickname.
Yeah,
everyone knows what you're talking about. He doesn't even need a last name.
Stephen A. 3 syllables. Right there. You got the 3 syllables in Stephen.
Perfect. Yeah, if it was Stephen Smith, it wouldn't work out that well, right?
Well, I think we've cracked the code on how names work.
Yeah,
I gotta say that we're only a couple minutes in here and we're already solving world problems.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we're off to a good start. Ceruti, we got to have you more on, man. We're solving real life problems that people need to know about. So
yeah, I don't know if this is like a pressing issue, but it's something that we're at least helping somebody out there.
Keep this in mind for life advice if that ever comes up when you're struggling with a name. This is, you got to refer back to this here. But one thing I want to talk about with you for a second is just kind of your career arc. I mentioned earlier Quinnipiac Steve. That's because I've listened to SVP and Russillo from back in the day, and you've been kind of with them. You've been with when it was just Will Kane, when it was just been Russillo at ESPN. Now you're over at The Ringer. So I'm kind of curious. And then in between that, which we're going to get to, you had your own podcast with Brian Scalabrine, which we are definitely going to talk on here in just a minute. But I'm just curious, like when you first got into sports media, did you have a particular goal in mind? Was it to eventually maybe like get to be on air, or was it always to be behind the scenes? And now you're kind of in like a nice little mix where you're obviously part of Life Advice, but then Russillo knows that, for the same reason we have you on here, you're great about the NBA, you're great about soccer. So he mixes you in with some of the going abroad moments with Kevin Clark, brings you in for NBA topics. You have a nice little kind of combo right now, but like what was the original goal, and is kind of where you've gotten to kind of almost an ideal setting for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's one like a lot of younger sort of people in media will hit me up and be like, how do I carve like the role that you've found? And when I started ESPN in 2011, and it was funny because I had graduated from college at Quinnipiac. What's up? Shout out to the Bobcats. In 2010. And I didn't really like, I hosted a radio show at the student radio station, sports talk show with a couple of my buddies. I really liked it. I was a communications major. I knew I wanted to get into media. I knew I liked sports, but I also like kind of was interested in like law school, and I was like, how do I make money in life? Like I knew, because all my professors basically at college were like, if you want to get into media, like you're going to make $20,000 a year for like 5 years, and you got to grind. And a lot of that, like that weeded out a lot of people. I mean, people were just like, all right, I'm going to go into sales, or I'm going to go into this or whatever. So I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So me and my buddy started studying for the LSAT. We were like, all right, maybe we'll just see how we do. I actually took the LSAT. I did all right. Probably would have taken it again. But I was still applying for jobs, and I ended up getting this like part-time, basically like PA job at ESPN Radio. And I was like, I'll try it for a while, see if it works. Like, I feel like I'm creative. I feel like I'm knowledgeable, and, why not give it a shot? If it doesn't work, I could always, take the LSAT again or something. And I started working overnights for 2 years. I was on the board, working with, some interesting people. And I really liked it. And the big kind of break was really when I got put on the board of SVP and Russillo. I think it was like 4 days a week at the time, because I still had a day on the weekend. And I got to thank those guys because, I feel like I'm confident and I'm knowledgeable and I bring stuff to the table, but they really like embraced like me and sort of the ideas that I had. And they were super welcoming to, just making the show better, like anything. And those guys like Stanford Steve, it was Van Pelt, it was Russillo, the old producer, Ray Netchie. It was like a really great group that we had, and we sort of built this thing that was really cool. And throughout that entire time, they would afford me the opportunity to like do like I think we did like a NBA questions with Quinnipiac Steve or something. They would give me like little on-air things to do, but it was never really my goal to be like, I want to host my own show. I liked sort of being able to chime in when I had something to say. And they would usually let me do that, especially later on. And then Will let me do that as well. I did a little bit of that on Mike and Mike. And that's kind of what I do now. So it was never like, hey, I want to be the next Russillo or I want to be Colin Cowherd or whoever. It was more of like, I just like coming up with like dope ideas, and I just like talking sports, and I think like my brain works the way that like the fans' brain works, where I know what questions or how to press Ryan to like get the most out of him for what the listener wants. So that's usually what I try to do, whether it's on the podcast or on the radio show back in the day. So I've sort of found my way into this role that has been pretty cool. And it's something that I really like, because I'm allowed to do a lot of the creative stuff behind the scenes, the guest booking, the long-term planning, the idea stuff. But also, like, if I really just want to go on a 1 minute, magic rant, which ends up probably being like 5 minutes, Ryan will let me do that. So it's worked out kind of well that way.
And so now you're at the Ringer. What would you say is the biggest difference between working at the Ringer and working at ESPN?
Well, that's a great question. I loved my time at ESPN. I wouldn't be where I am without it. There's like a ton of great people there. But I think the thing about the Ringer, and one of the reasons that I wanted to leave ESPN, not because I wasn't happy there, but it was like I didn't know what was next for me. And, they're still sort of like in the podcast, like they do podcasts. There's a lot of podcasts, but I don't know if they take it as seriously from a company standpoint as obviously Spotify and the Ringer do. That's what we do, like that and the website. So it was just kind of like the next step. And plus, like I had been working in radio for a while, and I was like, you know what, I kind of know podcasting is the future. I'm more interested in doing that. And so I guess the difference would be that, there's probably a little bit more creative freedom at a place like the Ringer to like do weird shit. Now we did a lot of weird stuff. I mean, the original FGP and Russillo's show, I think, was pretty groundbreaking, because those two guys like weren't afraid to try anything. Like they would do drafts before everybody else was doing that. They would do, obviously, who's the nerd or who's the jerk, like stuff that really was genuinely groundbreaking, like that people weren't doing on radio at the time. That now, like I feel like everybody kind of does or whatever, or versions of that. And I think at the Ringer, almost every show has free reign to like make a random list of stuff that they want to do, or create a show around an idea that is totally wacky, but like, everybody has to buy in because they believe in the creative process. So not that ESPN, you couldn't do that, but it's more like, hey, our bread and butter is sports. We have live rights. Let's make sure we make the NFL happy. Let's make sure we make the NBA happy, the SEC, all that stuff. Whereas at the Ringer, it's just a little bit more of like a free for all in a good way.
Yeah, you mentioned in that, your time leaving ESPN and kind of before you got to the Ringer, where you really had a chance to be kind of the face of a program. And so you actually hosted a podcast with Brian Scalabrine, Scal and Pals, where you were the main pal. And, and, I want to talk a little bit about that, because, that's kind of as part of your whole career. Like you said, you never really set out to be the guy that's on camera. I know you did some other stuff behind the scenes with that as well. But Brian Scalabrine, very polarizing figure for us, being very entrenched in the Celtics community, obviously with this show and on Twitter and on social media. And so a lot of people have different thoughts about Scal. So I'd love to hear your thoughts working directly with him for, I think it was close to a year, right? That you guys worked together. I'd love to know what that was like, and if you have any good Scal stories, we're always open to hear those.
Yeah. So I'm interested to hear first though, what makes Scal so polarizing in Boston? Is it just that he's kind of brutally honest about stuff? Like, what is because I'll get to your question in a second, but I'm just interested to know why.
Yeah, I think I could hop in on that. So first of all, he's replacing Tommy Heinsohn, right? Which is a really difficult place to step into. And then in just the way that he delivers information and the chemistry that Mike and Tommy had, it was just like so symbiotic. And there's almost like a push and pull in terms of the conversation with Mike Gorman, and the conversation doesn't really just flow that well. And Gorman's a legend, right? Yep. But he's kind of like, if we're all being honest with ourselves, he's losing his fastball a little bit. He's kind of getting into that Marv Albert range where he's like mixing up names every other possession.
Mixes up players at least 5 times a game.
Like he'll call out guys that like aren't even on the court. And he'll be like, oh, you made the basket now. But Scal, like the way he talks to Mike, it almost sounds like he thinks he's better than him. He's like a little pretentious in the way he delivers information. And then, dude, on the post-game show with Abby Chin, who we had mentioned before we got on here, like the way that he would talk to Abby was so demeaning, dude. Like it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And there are even people out there like, is this his way of like flirting with her? Like he's being so mean. Like, why is he being so mean? So it's just his personality is just rubbing people a lot of the wrong way a lot of times.
Okay, so that actually provides some good clarity, because my time with him, and Scal was nothing but good to me. So I think he has this sort of way about him where, not that he's stubborn, but he, like, if he like, I would bring up an argument with Scal, right? I'd be like, hey, this is why I think, I don't know, Zion. I was pretty early on, like, I was a little skeptical on Zion. I was like, all right, I'm not sure, like, if he's the prototypical guy that's going to lead you to a title, like that body type, that player, that position. I was like, all right, I see more the John Morant style, or the guy that the primary ball handler. And he kept harking home. He was like, oh no, he's the next Draymond Green. He's the next Draymond Green. He's like the better version, the idealized version of Draymond Green. And I'm like, yeah, but is the best version of Draymond Green still the best player? Like, is he going to carry you on a title team? I don't know. Like, I don't know if that type of role, a guy who is, yes, he helps everybody else out on the team, but is he taking the final shot? Is he like blah, 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 blah. We just did not see eye to eye on that topic. And he would be dismissive, but I don't think, not in he wasn't trying to be rude or mean, or, hey, screw you, I don't give a crap about your opinion. It was more of like, he just didn't understand what you were saying. So I think that might be part of it, is that when he like gets into his own head, like, he's like, no, this is the way I think, and this is why I think that. And it could maybe come off as like a little bit standoffish or rude or whatever, but he really is not. He's a good guy. He really is. And he loves hoops. And the crazy thing too is, we used to have Kendrick Perkins on, or, different guys from that Celtics team, the 08 team. And all those dudes absolutely fucking love Scal. They would take a bullet for Scal, and, the amount of stories where, Scal would, or be working with somebody after practice and getting up shots, and would just be hoping other guys on the team, that to me says a lot. Like, when you're teammates, when you're like the 12th man on the bench or something like that. And especially when, he was the crowd favorite, right? So some guys that could, that could rub them the wrong way, because they're like, hey, who's this guy? Like, I'm actually playing, and Scal's getting standing ovation every time he, plays a couple minutes at the end of the game. But his teammates absolutely loved him, whether it was like KG or, Pierce, Perk, all those dudes, Eddie House, whoever. And so I think that tells you everything you need to know about Scal. But Scal, I could see, in just some of the media stuff that I've, consumed of him after our show, I could see why you guys think that way. But trust me, good dude. And obviously loves the Celtics, and loves like the culture of the Celtics, loves the city of Boston. He lives there. He eats, sleeps, and breathes it. So I see what you're saying, but I think it's more of like a miscommunication thing, where I think sometimes he just gets in his own head. And if he can't understand an argument, he can get a little bit standoffish.
Yeah, and I feel like, replacing a legend, as Greg mentioned, with Tommy Heinsohn, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And then and to his credit, one thing I think he's gotten a lot better at is, so they've kind of weaned him into his role over the last couple of years as Tommy Heinsohn's health was starting to decline. And so when he first started, he was definitely putting on a character where he had this kind of like bro essence to him that he was trying to bring. And like, it almost felt in his mind, he was like, this is what the crowd wants. This is what they want. They want like the opposite of Tommy, who's old, cranky, super homer. They want like the bro hanging out with them, who they can get a beer with.
Yeah.
And it was totally forced, and it was very apparent. But I think he's done a good job of like actually finding his voice a little bit better, but it's still just, it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. But to your point, I feel like I have heard behind the scenes that a lot of people would be a big time advocate. And one of my favorite things Scal ever did, and this is before he was the full-time color guy, was, how everyone thinks that they can beat like an NBA player, or they're like, man, that guy was a scrub.
He was the poster boy for that. Yeah,
he was, and that's why I love. This is several years ago where he challenged people in Boston. He's like, all right, well, come on out and play me. And I think he played like 5 or 6 guys, and there was, I think, one guy scored on him, and the guy that did score on him, like, it was the final score was like 11-3 or something like that. It was a guy that was, back end bench player at like Syracuse or something, so he wasn't like a total scrub.
Yeah,
exactly. He played D1, but it was like, this is like, I did really respect and love that segment. Is that something that y'all had ever talked about on your show, about how NBA players that are, quote unquote back end type guys get so disrespected by the fans?
Yeah, that video, I think, was after we had worked together, but it's Scal, as I said, he's the poster boy for people thinking like, oh, I could beat Scal in one-on-one. Like he's 6'8", and he's still a good athlete. Yeah, I mean, it's absurd. The guy played, it has to do with, he's a white ginger. And like, that's it. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. And like, guys are going to be like, this guy's not tough. No. He can't play. and yeah, I mean, it's true. I truly think that that's why. And obviously, I think part of it is like his reputation as like this fan favorite, no matter where he's been, whether it was Boston or Chicago or wherever. And people were just like, oh, who the hell is this guy? Like he's like, they think he's, to bring it full circle, he's like Rudy, where he's not Rudy. He played at USC. He's been great. He's been a great basketball player ever since he came out of the Pac Northwest. So we would like, I would hit on it every once in a while. I don't think we ever had like a major conversation about it, but I love when videos like that happen because it just shows you, like, there used to be a show like it was Pros versus Joes or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't really remember exactly the format, but like it's a perfect case of the average guy at the YMCA who's like, oh, feeling himself and maybe thinks he could hit like 33% from three or something. He is getting demolished by Brian Scalabrine in one-on-one. And here's the thing too, is you put Scal in like a team setting and he's just going to make everybody better around him. And you're going to see the passing skills, like even just like the defense and the length of a guy like that. If you're not 6'2", 6'3", I'm 5'11". If I ever played Scal 1-on-1, I wouldn't score, period. And I feel like I had like I was like better when I was younger. I'm not that great now. But these guys, I think that they could just like get buckets on Scal. Even at his age now, it's not happening. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Will, do I hop in here with my Tiago splitter thing?
Oh God!
Yes, I want to hear it.
Right, see if you can do it quickly.
Okay. So Will and I just have this running joke, like back in the day. We're both 32 now. So when I was like 22 and in shape, I would like practice with the Boston College team and stuff like that. I used to work out with Reggie Jackson, and like I felt like if you gave me the ball against Tiago Splitter, I think I said I could score in 20 possessions. I could score like 4 times or 5 times. And Will was just convinced I would not score 1 time. I was like, man, I'm just going to, I'm bringing the ball out to 30
Set the line
feet.
at 2, to be fair. Set the line at 2.
Okay. All right.
2 out of 20 possessions. That's actually not that ridiculous. I mean,
right. And I don't have to guard him. It's just he's guarding me. If it's a game of 1-on-1, he's blowing me out. But if I just have to score 2 times on him, I feel like I could hit a couple lucky shots.
What would your go-to? Like, would you you're not trying to get to the hole, right? So you'd have to probably take some step back jumpers. Like, what are you doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm starting at 30 feet, right? Probably a couple dribbles through the legs, talking some shit. And then he's going to,
I don't know about the talking shit part.
I seem like a big shit talker, so I don't know if that would really work, but yeah.
Yeah. That's fair.
May have to work on your Portuguese.
Yeah.
I'm backing up to 30 feet and he's going to give it to me. I'll take the first one. If I hit that first one, I'm good. I feel like I'm scoring 5 buckets if I hit that first one because he might have to come out and respect me. He might even let me take a second one and be like, oh, you're lucky you hit that shot. But I can really shoot it. So I feel like hit a couple lucky threes. Maybe I get him to bump on a pump fake 1 time and just like get a layup on him. And then he starts like really locking me down. And then when you're a professional athlete, even if you're 7 feet like he is, if he got his body into me, I wouldn't be able to do anything.
The problem that you're going to have is, one, even though he's not laterally quick NBA wise, I'm sure he is laterally quick for like the average dude.
Definitely.
Right? So he just is. So you're not going to be able to get past him. And even if you do like a little, crossover, pump fake, whatever, his length, man, like his contest on you is going to be so much better than any guy who's like 6'5", 6'6" in the NBA. Because how tall are you?
5'11".
So yeah, you're like me. So the problem is like your height is working against you. So even if he's not playing great defense or you do kind of get him, his length, he's going to get a hand in your face every single time. It's luck.
Absolutely.
Now 2 out of 20, I think
Now I set the line. This is what I said. I think he can.
Yeah, what's the number?
I'm saying he could get 2 out of 20. He was saying he could get 4 or 5 out of 20. And I don't think you're going 20% on this. Like 25%. Like that's not happening.
I would entertain 2 out of 20. I don't think you're scoring 25% of the time.
And I thought I was being nice, saying I thought I was being nice, being like, yeah, I think you can get 2. I thought that was pretty good. And he was like, bullshit, man. I can get 4. I get 5 buckets against Tiago. I think this must have been around the time that the Spurs and Heat finals were going on. I think we were watching a lot of Tiago Splitter, and he was getting toasted in that series.
This would make a great show for like guys on Twitter where like if they fire off a tweet that's like, yeah, I'd get buckets on Tiago Splitter, and then all of a sudden like the next couple of days like the guy shows up with the wine. It's like, all right, prove it, dude. The problem is, and it's why LeBron never goes into a dunk contest. It's because he's afraid of expectations, right?
Yep.
If you do indeed like drop 6, 7, 8 buckets on Tiago Splitter, it's a bad look for him, right? What's the win net for Tiago Splitter? So it'd be a great thing in theory, but all these NBA guys, they wouldn't do it because they'd be afraid of getting beat.
Yeah, I've had that vision before that you just laid down, Ceruti, of like us putting together like a live event for Green with Envy. And Tiago Splitter has absolutely nothing to do with the Celtics, but just it's like our personal friendship. But like finding a way, and I'm Brazilian as well, so like maybe I can work some Brazilian connections to be like, yo, Tiago, come on, man. I got but like you said, there's no win. Even if I could somehow get connected with Tiago Splitter's people, there is zero.
How much amount of money would you have to pay him to potentially be embarrassed by a 5'10", 5'11" dude? Like,
well, Well, here's the thing. To make this happen so I can prove to Greg that I'm right, I would put down, I don't know if I have enough money for what he's looking for, but I would empty out some of my bank account for it. I would cash out some stocks. I'd try my best to make that happen just so I can prove I'm right.
I was gonna say I was thinking maybe like crowdsource this thing, get a GoFundMe going. I don't know, see if we could do that. That's probably more likely.
This is why you're an idea man behind the scenes. That's a way better idea. Than
and then you don't have to burn any of the money, dude. Then you're not out like however much money. Who
Far better
idea. Listen, at 32 years old, as washed up as I am, I'm not scoring anything on Thiago Splitter now. I'm saying prime 22. Yeah, prime me. Prime, you know, prime you. Ceruti, how many you dropping on prime you, you know?
I'm with you. I feel the same way as you. When I was in my mid-20s, I'm playing at the Y consistently. I'm like, yeah, I could play. But then you'd have that guy at the Y who'd come in, he'd be like, oh, you always got to get a hand in his face or otherwise he's just going to hit every shot. And that guy probably was barely a walk-on at like a college program, right? Like I always think that's so funny. Like I remember there was this guy in high school who he was a pretty good basketball player, didn't even play, but he didn't play for the high school team. I think it was like a choice, but he was good. We used to play with him at the Y and he was fine, but he would always be like, oh, I could walk on at UConn. I'm like, no, you can't. You can't. And this is what we're talking UConn, like prime UConn, 2004, like Ben Gordon, Okafor, all those dudes. Yeah. Like you're not walking on at UConn, dude. I'm sorry. Like you maybe the manager, maybe, but like it ain't happening. Sorry.
So you were at Quinnipiac in 2010?
I graduated 2010. Yep.
Okay. So was that when Casey Cosgrove was there on the basketball team?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I played against him because I think he went to Andover, but that dude really fucking good. I feel like Casey Cosgrove could drop like 5 or 6 buckets on Thiago.
Thiago Splitter. Sure. I mean, well, again, that's a D1 college basketball player. Yeah. I might give you prime him. Yes, I could see that. But again, good, and that's what's crazy is like there's the levels to this man. Like he was a great basketball player. But he's playing at Quinnipiac. I love Quinnipiac. Again, shout out to the Bobcats, but we're not like a powerhouse program here. We never even made the NCAA tournament. So although we are D1, so there you go. But like the amount of guys that are just good basketball players that like aren't even sniffing NBA level talent is, and a lot of it's size too. Like let's not, obviously Thiago Splitter was gifted to be 7 feet, so that's great, but it just ain't happening with those guys.
So real quick, Steve. So I don't know why I just called you Steve. We agreed to.
It's all good. No worries.
I just threw that in there. But so you grew up in New England, right?
Yep, I did.
All right. So I'm hard pivoting here. How'd you become a Magic fan?
So I get this question all the time. My fandom in all of sports, I didn't subscribe to really any of the local teams. I don't know why. I kind of grew up. I grew up playing baseball, and I was a little bit of a Red Sox fan, but I had Red Sox and Yankees. But I'm not really a baseball guy now at all. I didn't really follow.
Yeah, is that a Red Sox hat you have on? No, it's not a Red Sox hat you have on.
No, this is just like a random hat I got on Instagram. It's nothing. I think I'm looking cool, but I didn't really subscribe. Like I wasn't a Pats fan. I wasn't a Giants fan, Jets fan. I wasn't a Celtics fan, Knicks, Nets fan, obviously. I would pick teams that I liked that were either good when I was growing up or that I played video games with. And I just kind of like stuck with them because I came from, my dad wasn't a big sports fan. My mom really wasn't. Her dad, my grandfather was, but he was a big Yankee fan and a big golf guy. So I didn't really have like too many sports influences of like here's who you should root for. So whether it was, growing up playing Sega or, N64, like those are the teams that I like, whatever team I like playing with, I probably ended up choosing. So for the Magic, one of my earliest basketball memories was the Penny and Shaq sort of like finals run. And then like the little penny commercials. And I had the shoes. And so that's kind of how I like started to become a Magic fan. And then what really cemented it was T-Mac, the T-Mac era. I love T-Mac. That dude is one of the most underrated players, I think, in the league history. Like you talk to guys in the league and they'd be like, T-Mac, that dude can get absolutely, he was just a bucket getter, period. And he was, I know everyone's like, oh, he never got out of the first round and now all the troubles in the playoffs. I mean, there's some truth to that. And like, I guess you can share some blame or give him some blame for that. But, some of those teams weren't also great either. Like some of those Magic teams he was on weren't awesome. And even the Rockets team, with Yao, like they were it wasn't great. It was on a great team. So that kind of cemented the Magic thing for me. I'm not from Orlando. So sometimes I feel like a fraud because like guys like Kevin Clark who are from Orlando and grew up going to the Magic games, like they have more, I guess, cachet than I do, or they can back it up a little bit more. But I tell you, I wish I like at this point in my life, like I haven't had that much joy other than the 2009 finals from being a Magic fan, right? Like we've had a couple like lottery picks that have been lucky, obviously Dwight, and we've had some luck in free agency, but the team, especially for the last like decade, has been pretty poor. So childhood me, I would have probably rather been a Celtics fan. I probably had a little bit more enjoyment in my life of at least one title, but I'll stick with my Magic fandom. And then like for the other sports, like I'm a 49ers fan because of Steve Young growing up, right? And then I'm a soccer fan, like I'm an Everton fan. because of Tim Howard, who's just a U.S. player that I rooted for. But none of my teams were actually very good, and I haven't had much success recently. So it was a terrible strategy growing up to just pick teams that were good in video games.
I love that you're a T-Mac fan, because when I found out you were a Magic fan, that was like the one thing I wrote down. Because T-Mac, did he or did he not make the top 75 list?
He did not.
He did not.
Which is, to me, is ridiculous.
And people were mad about Dwight not making it, which I think was fair. Dwight, I think as much as I don't like Dwight, and Kevin and I have talked about this, like I remember those times fondly, but I'm never gonna fuck with Dwight. Like he's just not. Like I'm good.
I hate Dwight, but I 100% think he should have been on the 75.
Yeah, he should have been on it. Like put your bias aside. He was as dominant of a player during that era as, I mean, we were having legitimate conversations about whether or not you would start a franchise with Dwight Howard, LeBron James during like 08, 09, that era. He was so good defensively. Yes, he wasn't there offensively. But I mean, you just look at his numbers. Like just look at his stats. The guy was unbelievable. And T-Mac, so I think he should be in. But to your point, a lot of NBA guys are like, hey man, T-Mac, like that was that dude. Like he belongs in this list. And then he'd probably be on the fringe. And there's who do you leave in, who do you leave out? Like I know like Dame Lillard got in, for example. Like I think Dame probably does deserve it, but I'd like to see a little bit more time. I probably would have put T-Mac in over him, even though I do love Dame. But T-Mac, I swear, like he's one of those guys where like, he probably doesn't get as much credit from guys outside of ex-players, but players, those dudes really know.
Yeah, I think there was probably a time, this might be a little bit hyperbole. I don't think it is. I truly believe this, that T-Mac was the best two guard in the league for like a 2-year stretch. Like that when he was dropping like around 35 a game. I went to see him play against the Celtics one time. So the two guys in the Magic that I was like absolutely blown away by the times I went to Celtics games, T-Mac played against them and just like destroyed Paul Pierce, and like no one could even touch him. And then Dwight Howard, the year y'all made the finals, bro, I saw him deter people at the 3-point line when he was standing in the paint. Like they didn't even want to come close to the paint.
Bro, I was at that game with you. Not just anyone. It was Ray Allen. Like the second or third greatest shooter of all time was fucked up by it.
Yep.
Yeah, he was worried Dwight was going to block his shot at the 3-point line. Like that's how he was. He was one of the most dominant forces I've ever seen.
I loved that team so much because one, they had a lot of guys that were likable. Hedo Turkoglu, Jameer Nelson, JJ Redick. I've talked about this in the past. Like I haven't done a 180 on anybody like JJ Redick in sports fandom in my life. I hated him at Duke. Gets drafted by the Magic. I'm like, oh man, we drafted JJ Redick. Yeah, this sucks. Now I got to maybe root for this guy. He struggled a little bit early in his career, but he became genuinely one of my favorite players and is now one of my favorite players that I've watched.
He's hard not to like as an analyst. He's really cool.
and exactly. And he's got a great pod. He's a good analyst. All the above. He seems like a great dude. But that team was really likable. But also they were kind of like trendsetters in a way because they really. And there's some people give them credit for it, but they kind of started a little bit of this 3-point sort of revolution and kind of like where the game went, because they basically just went, Dwight, it's almost like what Utah does a little bit with Gobert, but a better version of it, because they would just go, all right, you're going to hold down the paint. Nobody's going to score in here on you. No one's going to want to do it. And we'll just get a bunch of guys on the perimeter. We're just going to run their asses off and play great defense and protect the rim or protect the 3-point line. And then on the other side, we're just going to shoot a ton of threes, and Dwight's going to get the rebound, or we're going to lob to him and he's going to kick it out and it's going to be good. And so they kind of they were really kind of revolutionary in the way that they played. And like, that's why I've always kind of had a soft spot for Stan Van Gundy, even though it's been kind of a tough run in his last couple of stops. Detroit was a mess. And then obviously last year with the Pelicans was a mess, but he really unlocked what was possible for Dwight and what was possible for like these teams in the NBA. Because back then, this was even before you have, Charles Barkley saying, oh, the Warriors can't win a title because jump shooting teams don't win titles. The Magic very easily could have won a title being just a jump shooting team, because, Dwight was the best player on the team and he kind of made everything go. But you have to understand, like, that was Hedo Turkoglu, that was JJ, that was Michael Petras, Rayford Alston was involved in that as well. Those guys were shooting threes. Jameer Nelson got hurt, and that was the problem. So here's the issue with that. I'll never get over this. This is the one mistake that I think Stan did make in that playoff run to the finals. Was Rayford was playing great, man. He was playing really, really good, and Jameer was healthy for the early part of that finals run, and he puts Jameer into the starting lineup, and it messed with the chemistry. He wasn't ready. And again, it was game 2 with the Courtney Lee missed layup. There were a couple of things where that series could have been way closer than it really was. And I think if Stan didn't make that move and had run with Rayford Alston, I don't know if they win the series, but it's definitely closer. And if Jameer didn't get hurt, I think they very easily could have won that title. So a lot of Magic fans kind of look at that as a a massive missed opportunity, even though like a lot of the casuals around would be like, oh, they got, that was a blowout finals. The Lakers just absolutely demolished them. It really wasn't. Those games were close and the Magic were just as good. And if you remember that year too, the Magic were just a nightmare matchup for LeBron and the Cavs, an absolute nightmare matchup. And I think they beat you guys. They beat the Celtics because you guys were injured, right? I think it was
no KG.
Yeah, no KG. So they kind of caught a little bit of lightning in a bottle, but that team could have very easily won a title if not for a couple of decisions here and there.
Yeah. All right. Well, what we're gonna do now is I want to transition us here to another segment, because I know we're running a little bit longer, but it's been a fucking awesome conversation, man. So I just kind of want to let it flow, but I do want to make sure we're at least cautious of your time here a little bit. So what we want to do is, obviously we focus in a lot on the Celtics here. And so we want to sometimes take a deep breath because it's fucking long season, man. There's so much going on. Like, we can't keep talking about Ime's rotations. Like, it's just, we got to find something new to talk about every now and again. So we want to kind of scope out, look at the league as a whole. But, I'd mentioned at the top, you guys do a great job on the Russillo podcast with you, Nephew Kyle, and Russillo doing life advice. Become an absolute fan favorite segment. One of my favorite listens too. Sometimes I'll be honest, I just go right to that part of the podcast, and that's what I tune into because it's fantastic. So we want to do something similar with this called basketball advice. And these are all, just to be clear, 100% real, genuine, and not made up emails. I repeat, these are not made up emails. All right. So we're gonna see what we get here. You ready for this, Ceruti?
I love it. Let's do it.
All right. Here's the first one we got. Hey, what's up, guys? Big fan of the pod. 49 years old, 6'4", 212 pounds, currently squatting 175 3 times per week. Pretty solid for a 49-year-old. Not bad. All right. Recently moved from Houston, and I'm currently living in a Philadelphia suburb, and I'm running a new franchise for the first time in several years. I've dealt with difficult employees before, but my new situation is starting to spiral out of control. I have one guy who, when he's healthy, is one of the 5 to 7 best players in the league, and the other employees and customers absolutely love him. Problem is that I'm not sure how long I'm going to have him healthy and available, and need to maximize the team support around him. My supposed second best employee is the one I'm not sure what to do with. In theory, he could be a top 15 to 20 player and possibly an ideal second banana to almost anyone in the league. However, he hates it here, won't talk to anybody or listen to advice from anyone on our staff, has a slight phobia of metal rims, and has made it very clear he no longer wants to play on our team. Before I moved from Houston, this guy was talked about as a potential franchise guy and held a stock value that rivaled other stars in the league like Dame Lillard and Brad Beal. I recently tried to keep his name in the news through my friend, let's call him Hams, by associating his name with a star of similar age in Jaylen Brown. Nobody believed it. It didn't go over very well, and I should probably avoid visiting Boston for a little bit. His value is at its lowest possible point, and I seemingly can't get him to amicably rejoin the team to help rebuild it. I can't continue to waste one of my best players' precious, valuable seasons, as I don't know how many of them there will be. What do I do with my unhappy employee? Sell low and recoup what I can to maximize my best player's prime window? Or continue down the path of our current stalemate, hope the market or his mind about playing to rebuild his value changes? Any advice would help. What do you got for us, Ceruti?
Wow. Sell. That's what I would say in that scenario. I think our guy, I understand the issue. Like, you want to keep the thing going, but in this situation, I am 100% selling. I am out on this. I think you got to move on. Sometimes you got to just rip the Band-Aid off and move on to the future. And I think that's what, usually people do that a few years too late. I would do that in this situation and kind of move on from there.
Yeah, the part that really worried me there was when that emailer was talking about the phobia of metal rims.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just not going to work out for anybody.
So what do you think would be, in this situation, kind of knowing who we're talking about here, what do you think would be a reasonable return for the investment they've already made into this particular player? Feel free to use real names.
Hold on. Who are we talking about really quick? Sorry.
So we're talking about Ben Simmons here. So if the Sixers are to trade Ben Simmons, what's a reasonable return that you think that you would take right now, to your point of, like, we can't continue down this path, we need to get something and kind of look to the future? What's a reasonable return?
All right, I got confused there for a second. You're good. Yeah,
it was tough. I know.
I would say the problem with the Simmons stuff is that I would take a shot on Simmons if I was like a random franchise. Like if I was like, maybe not the Magic specifically, but if I'm maybe 10,
not my franchise, but a different franchise.
No, just because I don't think you would fit, like, personnel wise. Yeah, the attitude is a problem, but I still think there's something there. Like, I was one of those idiots, and I call myself an idiot now because it probably looks like a terrible take, but I was like, okay, this guy could be a baby Giannis if you give him the right situation. But the problem is, like, why is any team around the league going to help out the Sixers in getting rid of their problem? This is something that Ryan's talked about a lot, is like, why I give up any real assets for something that you are stuck with? That's your problem. That, yeah, sure, like maybe I could turn something into, but he's already making a ton of money. So what the heck is it? What's worth it for me to give up any real assets? That's why like the Jaylen Brown thing was such a joke. Like whatever that trade rumor was. I mean, I'm sure the Celtics probably called and that's what the price was. And they're like, all right, we're good. So like if I'm Sacramento, if I'm maybe even San Antonio, if I am one of these teams that like maybe isn't going to get a top draft pick, but is looking to sort of like re-energize their franchise. And I say that re-energize, like Ben Simmons doesn't seem like he's gonna bring any energy to your franchise except negative energy. But I could talk myself into being like, yeah, all right, I'll take a shot on this dude. But if I'm Philly, I'm also like, why? We've spent all these years developing this guy. We've helped him. We've paid him a ton of money. We still owe him a ton of money. I'm not just gonna let him go for a couple of fringe role players, right? Like for example, I think if you look at it in a vacuum one way, would I, if I was Philly, take CJ McCollum for Ben Simmons? I would do that. Yeah. All right.
I've been saying that for a long time on this podcast.
Is CJ McCollum better than Ben Simmons? Probably not, even though the stock on Ben Simmons is really low. But do I think the Sixers are better with CJ McCollum over Ben Simmons? I do, actually. So you have to kind of look at it that way. So there are like a couple scenarios in which I do think trades make sense. Now, if I'm Portland and I'm trying to keep Dame Lillard, I'm not making that trade, right? Because that's a future move. I'd imagine Dame's gonna be like trading like my best friend for this guy who doesn't really want to play, doesn't shoot, and kind of needs the ball in his hands when I need the ball. Like that, how's that gonna work out? So there are like I think opportunities around the league, but man, if I'm Simmons, it doesn't sound like I don't know. Like at first it was like he was looking to see, I want to go to LA. I want to go to a big market. I want to do this and do that. Now it seems like his expectations have kind of been lowered a little bit. So I don't know what's exactly in his head, but to get back to my original point, if I'm Philly, I'm trying to get rid of him and get as much value as I can. I'm not waiting around for him. I'm just not.
Yeah, I like the CJ trade. I think when you see what the Sixers have been able to do with Embiid surrounded by shooters and just like how good they look when he's been healthy, you just got to get more shooters around him. If you're trying to get a high upside guy, the guy that I floated around since this initially started was De'Aaron Fox. I would love to see Ben Simmons for De'Aaron Fox trade straight up. And if you can't get Fox, I think you go Buddy Hield and see if you can steal Harrison Barnes. Ben Simmons for Hield and Barnes, I think would be a really nice recoup for the Sixers and sort of makes sense for both teams because if you talk to anybody that is affiliated with the Kings or a Kings fan, they'll tell you that they don't want Buddy Hield on their team anymore. Our guy Brendan Nunez, who runs this podcast called Kings Ball. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me, but there's something about his like attitude on the court that they just don't really appreciate.
Yeah, I think there was some Bogdanovich stuff last year too before the trade happened that like they didn't that he didn't really love. But and then the Lakers, why they didn't pull that trade off, and now they're stuck with Russell Westbrook makes no sense. But I think you're right. I think Sacramento would be a good spot. The question is like, does Ben Simmons want to be in Sacramento? Does he have a choice? I don't even know. I mean, if I was him, I would accept that because you get the limelight off you. You can actually go and concentrate on playing basketball for a while, and not have everybody hounding you left and right because Sacramento's probably the dead zone of the NBA, right? But I think the trade makes sense, but who knows, man? If I'm Sacramento, like, what am I giving up? Why am I helping you solve your problem?
Yeah, it's a fascinating situation. Like you said, the Jaylen Brown rumor was just so insane, but I think it was all about just trying to be like, hey, value by association. Like we're still talking Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons. So, Dame's not crazy. Brad Beal's not crazy. De'Aaron Fox isn't crazy, even though they're kind of crazy because to your point, I have all the leverage here. I'm not just going to give you my valuable assets. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think we helped the email writer too much here, but it's just kind of his own fault. So we'll see what happens.
It is. You made that bed you're in. You gotta sleep in it.
All right, let's go to our second email that we have here. Hey guys, listen every week and recently gave you a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and think others should too. Keep up the great work. Appreciate it, my man.
Nice, dude.
I'm 51 years old, 6'3", and 145 pounds. Not much for exercising, but like to get in the occasional pickup soccer match when time allows. Break a sweat. I like it. I'm currently the head of a multi-billion-dollar sports league. We'll leave the name out for now.
Okay.
And have held that position since 2014. They've done pretty well so far. Over the last few years, I started to hear complaint after complaint about how quote-unquote soft the game I oversee was getting and how referees were calling more and more whistles that were ruining the pace of play. Not to mention all the outside analysts from the 90s who won't stop talking about back in my day. Needless to say, I heard them all and made some changes. Physicality is up, Free throw attempts and specifically fouls on 3-point shots are way down. Some of the media have praised that the pace of play is more enjoyable this season. However, multiple All-Star players have either complained or their stats are way down. Is this just early season growing pains? Should I be concerned that some of my most bankable stars are struggling to adjust? Do you guys enjoy the version of my league's product? Looking for any insights you can provide.
This is a great email because this strikes close to my heart. I think you hold strong. Do not give in. Let the rules be themselves. If you believe that this is the future and you believe this is going to make the game better, do not let a couple of months or a couple of angry guards around the league who are used to getting 10 plus free throws a game bitch because now they're getting 6 or 7 free throws a game. I think this. Listen. The NBA players love to complain, right? They complain about the new ball. They complain about foul calls all the time. Too many fouls, too little fouls. Everyone who watches the game, everyone who has League Pass, you guys, me, whoever, can see that there was a foul problem in the league, period. There just was. Like when guys like Trae Young, when guys like James Harden, when these dudes can basically like scam the rules to and I'm not saying like that's like their entire game, but it has sort of turned into like their primary source of scoring. Like, oh, okay, when I went up a shot, let me just up fake and then just throw my body into some other guy or get his arm hooked into my arm and act like it's a foul when actually it probably should be a foul on the offensive player. I am telling this emailer to hold firm. Do not hold the fort down. Do not change anything. Make them adapt to you, and the game will be better because of it.
I agree 100%. One of the biggest issues that I had with the game in the last couple of years is that like guys like James Harden, right, who aren't the quickest guys in the world, really crafty, can get to the rim when they want to get to the rim. But when you can't put your hands on this guy because you're worried that he might just like draw contact and get a foul, that makes him so much more faster than he actually is. And I think this year you're kind of seeing him. I think he'll figure it out eventually because he's super talented. But that first step that he's had in previous years, I don't think he necessarily has the advantages that he's had in previous years, which makes the game more fun and allows guys like a Marcus Smart to be able to like play, physical defense on them. A big man who may have got pushed out of the league just because they were unable to be physical on guards, like an Al Horford, right? Al Horford looks amazing this year because he's allowed to be physical when he's guarding against guards. And to me, it's just a better product. And when you watch the end of the Celtics game last night against the Bucks, right? When we were about to go to a bar, Ceruti, right? So we're trying to coordinate with people like, oh, the game's going to be over and, it's a fourth quarter. So I think it's going to be like 20 minutes, right? There's probably not going to be too many fouls called, like unless it goes into overtime, which it did, like it's going to be about 20 minutes. So exactly the length of the event that you're consuming as an audience member. And I think that just to me makes it so much more enjoyable to watch. And then you don't have to worry about just like watching Trae Young and James Harden flop into calls and sit at the free throw line all game, or just watch referees, calling out replays and, Zach Carver and all those people like that just want the camera on them. Now it's about the product on the court. And I think it's a much more enjoyable viewing experience. So I agree. Hold firm.
I think we solved this one, guys. I have nothing else to add. I mean,
Will Weir, you got anything to add? Let's go.
I don't really, man. I mean, here's the thing, because like even in games where like obviously we cover the Celtics here, but just any game that I'm watching, like the fact that to Greg's point, I can feel more confident. And let's be honest, it's sometimes stressful in my personal relationship when I don't know how long that game is going to be. And it's like, I'll be there. I swear to God, it's just 10 minutes when really it's, half hour, 40 minutes, because we're looking at the same call over and over and over again, or we're shooting free throw after free throw after free throw. Like this new style of play, I think the guys that we're talking about that have their stats that are lower, they're going to adjust. They're too good not to. I think to your point, Ceruti, they've just programmed themselves. And something I've talked about before, looking at who's leading the league in free throw attempts, even though they're down, it's all guys that get fouled with the intention to actually score. Not just I'm doing this as, to your point, a bailout or a last result, or I know this will get me easy buckets. It's guys that are going up with the intent to score and then absorbing contact as a secondary part of what they're actually doing within the action. And then they get to the free throw line because of that. And it's just a 10 times more enjoyable product so far this season.
I think I'm glad we're all in agreement here because it had gotten out of hand. Like I think there is a craft to drawing fouls, but it had literally been like video game spammed. And and it's like, like in Call of Duty when when like a gun gets overpowered and they have to come in and they have to like, kind of like, just take it down a little bit. That's what they needed to do with fouls in the NBA. I'm glad that Adam Silver did this. So Adam, I don't care what they bitch about. Just keep doing you.
Hold firm, my guy. Hold firm. All right. We got one last email for you here, Ceruti. Then we'll go ahead and get you out of here. Here's our final email. Hey guys, originally from Boston, but now living in Austin, Texas, and really relate to your show. 5'11", 185 pounds, currently benching 205. Got videos if you'd like to see. Gonna be honest, my guy, we're probably good on the videos. Don't need to see the benching videos. We can put those in the back pocket. I have this idea for a Rookie of the Year championship belt to spice up the NBA season. I recently pitched the idea to Jonathan Charks, who said, not a bad idea, but kind of confusing. So I've reworked my pitch, and I'm ready for this idea to take off. Here's how it goes. The Rookie of the Year is a 4-year competition, or the length of the rookie contract. Basically, it's a Rookie of the Class and rewards 4-year production over first-year production. Why? To increase draft class competition and narratives beyond the rookie year. Example 1. Andrew Wiggins was Rookie of the Year, but Joel Embiid would have won Rookie of the Class 2015. Example 2. Michael Carter-Williams wins Rookie of the Year. Giannis wins Rookie of the Class 2014. Current example, Ja Morant wins year 1. Zion probably wins year 2. Zion might be incentivized to now win year 3, and then we'll still have a chance in year 4. Each year, there's a point system. First place is 5 points. Second place is 3 points. Third place is 1 point. Winners are announced each year. At the end of the 4 years, the player of the class is given a culminating prize. I'm convinced this would be an exciting addition to the NBA season. If we have a play-in tournament, why not have this? What do you think? P.S. My name is Greg, and you should stream my band Black Sheep Optimist on Spotify and Apple Music.
All right, shout out Greg. I will try to listen to your music. I just don't get the point. Because we already do this without giving out an actual award. Does anybody think Michael Carter-Williams won Rookie of the Year? But does anybody think about other than me as a Magic fan, does anybody think of Michael Carter-Williams now? Like, people know who the best player in the draft class is. Like, and also to the example, like, do you think Zion's playing any harder or is coming back any sooner from injury or getting his weight down more because he's trying to win this Rookie of the Class award? Like, no, like, there's already added pressure on him just to be a good player in year 3, year 4, not for some random award. So I like the creativity, and I do love the in-season tournament idea. So I get why we want to spice things up to make the regular season a little bit more interesting. And I like this like long-term look at stuff, but I think that's what Twitter's for, right? We don't need an actual award for that. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this Greg character, I think he's very well intentioned in his idea. He's been workshopping this idea for years now, and just waiting to get it into the right hands. People at the Ringer know this guy Bill Simmons, who's the king of crazy ideas.
Correct.
So it's always good to kind of like pitch it up the ladder and see what comes back to you. I agree that the idea probably won't work because how are you going to incentivize it? Just like with the in-season tournament, guys don't really care about it. So if the players don't care about it, then why should the fans care about it? Because if you can get the players to actually give a shit about it, and maybe it's not a 4-year thing, maybe it's just like you have a Rookie of the Year belt, you have to defend it for 1 year, and then that's it. It's like a 2-year event over a 4-year event. Regardless, I think that there's something there. And if he gets the right people, with the right ideas, like a Steve Ceruti, they might be able to figure out a way to make this thing work.
I think it's a great pitch. It's a great rebuttal. It's almost like you knew this guy, Greg. I would say, again, those guys they're fighting for their second contract at that point. Like, do you think, I was going to say, okay, how much money could you give them, right? Could you give them a couple million, which is, it's never going to happen, but you give them a couple $1 million for winning this Player of the Class award, right? But they're already going to be trying to play for like a supermax at that point where they're going to get like $250 million. So I don't know how much actually a couple $1 million is going to matter to them. I mean, I think bragging rights is what it really is. Like, I'm sure they want to be the best player in their class. So I don't know if there's like an official plaque that they could get at the end of 4 years, but here's the thing. Like, what happens? I wonder how many times this has happened too. Like, has a guy ever been the best player in his class after 4 years, but actually wasn't the best at the end of his career from his draft class? I would like to get research.
That's
on
a good
that,
study.
That's the thing.
I like that.
Because I'd rather be the best guy in my class at the end of my career, not the end of 4 years.
Yeah, that gets tricky though, because then you got to like figure, because you look at LeBron and Carmelo, they're the last two. So we know who the best in that class is, but like, when does that end? Like, and then how are you defining that? But
whenever the last guy retires, that's what right.
Okay,
whenever the last guy hangs it up,
that's what it could be. But yeah, I think the biggest problem with it is, to your point, the incentivization. I think that's the right word. I think I'm saying that correctly. Yeah, there we go. It's good enough. But like, same thing with like the in-season tournament, which is, you're a huge soccer fan. That's obviously very popular in soccer. But it's like, actually, I don't know a ton about soccer. Why do people in soccer? Why do soccer teams? Is it because of the tradition and the history? Like, why do they give a shit about it? Okay.
Basically. Now, it's less so now than it used to be, but like the FA Cup. So like there's the Premier League in England, just to use that for example, which is like every team plays every team in the division twice, and then whoever has the most points just wins. There's no playoffs or anything, right? And then they have a playoff version of a totally separate competition, which is the FA Cup. There's also a League Cup, but we'll just throw that aside for now. The FA Cup, which is basically all the teams in England play in a single elimination tournament, essentially. And usually the big clubs don't take it super seriously until like maybe later when they know that they probably have a chance to win a trophy. But my point for why we work in the NBA is, a couple years ago, right? Like when the Warriors were just dominating, and it was like a foregone conclusion, basically, they were going to be champions. It's like, what are we watching for? Like, what do the fan bases have to look forward to other than just like, all right, well, who's in the next year's draft class? Or what offseason moves can we potentially make to be better? If you throw in an in-season tournament that's more fluky with a one-game situation where one game and you're out, maybe the Rockets win a trophy during that season instead of coming home empty-handed, right? And I know people are going to mock it and be like, oh, well, it's a fake trophy. It doesn't really matter. You didn't win the title. I don't know, man. Like, I think if you embrace it and, you give these guys some money, and like me as a Magic fan, like, all right, during that time, we weren't doing shit. I mean, we were just happy to make the playoffs a couple years. But if we're like in the final 8 or final 4 of a knockout tournament, I'm going to be locked into that. Idea.
That's part of your year.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives these teams, it's just like another thing to like give, to pique interest as like in our ADD sort of society. But let me throw this at you. This has always been my idea.
Let's go.
And there are holes in this, but I'll let you guys, I won't point them out. I'll just lay it out. I think the lottery teams should play in a single elimination tournament in Vegas for the draft order. Like I think the top 3 picks. So like, if you're the 9 seed, you just missed the playoffs, right? And you're in the lottery, you have a chance to win your way to the number 1 pick in the draft. That completely eliminates tanking.
Yeah, it eliminates tanking, but also, it's not a bad idea, but also those teams that just miss the playoffs, like how do you rebuild your team then? Because if you're that bad, if you're like, I mean, the Oklahoma City Thunder are actually playing better than they're probably supposed to, or they want to right now, as they're hovering kind of around 500. But like, if you think about, use last year as an example, like the Warriors ended up not making the playoffs. Like, if you just give Steph going up against like the bottom rung of teams, the Warriors might have had the number 1 pick this year, and then they're adding Cade Cunningham, which is fun. But then to your point of like the malaise of the regular season, when like the Warriors are going to do it. So a team like the Warriors gets to add Cade or gets to add perhaps a generational talent that's available at that particular time. Like that seems like then you're just, I don't know. It's
yeah. Well, I got one more thing here. You say it might eliminate tanking, but if you get to a scenario in which you have a team that's best player gets hurt, like right before the playoffs, maybe there's like 10 games left, and if they lose all 10 games, they get out of the playoffs into this tournament and maybe get the number 1 pick in the draft because they think they can win if that player comes back, but they probably don't think they can win the actual NBA title. You might have that like reverse tanking thing that happens.
Yep.
So I would say that's the biggest hole, but I like it. Maybe there's a way in which like you're not playing. Maybe it's just to increase the odds versus just like getting.
There has to be an advantage to those teams that are really bad who really actually need the.
But here's the thing. Here's why I think long term it works is because you're not going to have these really shitty teams that aren't trying because there's no. So you're going to sign more free agents to at least have your floor be higher than what it would normally be. Like
have your draft pick roster ready to go.
Yeah, and here's the
thing. I'm
not against tanking. Actually, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not one of those people that's like,
same. I don't really.
What are we going to tell our children? Like, I don't care.
The process was so bad.
But like, I do think it would be a really fun competitive thing. And see, the issues that you guys brought up were not the main issue. I think the main issue is why do players on the team care about this? Like, why does a guy who maybe is at the end of his contract care about probably the team being able to draft his replacement?
Or the guy or if you sign a guy who's going to be a free agent, he's like, I'm not like, you sign me for a year so that I could be on this team, but I don't give a shit about this team.
But I think
I might not be here.
I think this promotes better front office, I guess, organizational stuff. Like, I think you're going to see less like, of letting like good players, like fringe players go for a mid-level to like a contender team where like maybe one of those middle of the road teams, like let's pay this guy because we think that it raises our floor. And even if we're not a playoff team, we could still make a run, maybe get a decent draft pick or something like that. So, and if you're a fan of one of those teams like me, who's been the Magic has been bad for a while, that would be more exciting than the regular season. Like, well, all right, we got a chance to actually win a I don't know, a draft lottery trophy. I don't know if you actually get a trophy for it, but and play our way to Cade Cunningham or play our way to whoever. I think that would be fun. But you're right. The problem would be like, remember the Nuggets a couple years ago when they were like a good team and they were the 9 seed. They just missed out in the playoffs. I actually think it was the year they ended up getting Porter Jr. But imagine if they got the first pick that year. Like that is kind of unfair. But yeah, I don't know. That's unfair. I don't know. Sometimes, like, should we be rewarding the team that just sucks and doesn't try with the first pick? I don't know. It's a different way to look at it.
I actually like that because I agree that it's going to make the bad teams just try to be better, and it's going to increase the overall product of the game. So I don't hate that, Steve Ceruti.
There we go. We'll try. We'll have to let Adam Silver know. I'll tell that to Bill and see if he likes that too.
There we go. See, there you go, Greg. That was the whole point of this entire interview, is to make sure that we go ahead and we get these meetings pitched to the ringer behind the scenes.
I'll have my people talk to your people. There you go.
Love it, man. Yo, Ceruti, really appreciate you joining us today, man. Honestly, this was one of the funnest conversations we've had. We probably could keep going with this. Like our brains are all kind of functioning right now on a high level as far as yeah, like we never mind.
Peak Bill, NBA Twitter realized right here.
Exactly. We need to skip over Bill. We're just gonna bring Adam Silver right in. We're just gonna give the ideas directly to the source.
Yep.
But appreciate you joining us here, man. Before we let you go, anything that you got going on that you want to shout out? I know you got your podcast with Michelle from your days at ESPN, or anything that you got going on, man. Take the floor here for a minute and just give that some love.
Yeah, no, appreciate you guys having me. I would just say, listen, Russillo show, and also I do kind of like a pop culture. I don't even know what you would call it. It's been described as like the Seinfeld of podcasts, not because it's like critically acclaimed or amazing, but it's literally about nothing. It's a pod that I do with Michelle where we talk about, I don't know, pop culture, music, anything that kind of interests us. So it's called Small Talk. Make sure you check it out. It's available anywhere.
Cool, man. Well, we appreciate it. We'll definitely shoot that a plug here when we get this going. But Greg, any final thoughts, and then go ahead and send us on out of here like you always do.
I'm 0 for 2 pitching the Rookie of the Year belt to Ringer employees. So we'll have to get a third Ringer employee on, see if I can get him. But dude, really appreciate talking to you. Love life advice. Love the show with Russillo. So keep killing it. And people that are listening, I don't know.
Hold on, real quick. I actually do have one thing real quick before we get to playing this out here. When are you and Nephew Kyle getting a spinoff show? Because I feel like the two of you have a great vibe and the people need it.
I love Kyle. He is one of the most unique people that I've ever met. It's funny. I just talk about Michelle in Small Talk. Like she'll like listen to Russillo's show and she likes to skip ahead to Life Advice. And she doesn't know Kyle. And she'd be like, who the hell is this Kyle guy? Like, why? He's the most absurd human being that I've ever heard in my life. His background, his stories, like all of it is 100% authentic.
It's
Kyle
wild.
is an absolute man. Love that dude. So yeah, if you haven't heard of it before, if you don't like sports, it doesn't matter. Listen to Life Advice.
Well, he's a big Pats fan here, so we're gonna bring him on next time. We'll have the four of us get together, and that will really create. I know he's not a big basketball guy, but we'll have some real Galaxy brain sessions with him.
Yeah, there'll be some Patriots talk there. He's into Mac Jones right now. He's a little devastated that Cam's on another team, so we'll see how that goes. But Nephew Kyle's the best.
All right, guys. Well, I don't know what song you're going to hear. Audience listening to the pod, you might hear the Orlando Magic theme song. You might hear some music from my band Black Sheep Optimist down here in Austin, Texas. Make sure you check us out. 3 words, Black Sheep Optimist with an S at the end of Optimist. Thank you for listening. Steve Ceruti, thank you for joining us. Have a good day, everybody.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.